When the spotlight hits the stage and the first scream echoes through the air, some duos, some voices are etched into our hearts forever. These are the faces, the guitars, the voices that shaped rock music. These are timeless legends. Bret Michaels and DeVille. They were the heart and soul of Poison. Bret Michaels, the wild, energetic frontman with a voice made for rock anthems. DeVille, the electric guitarist with a flair for big solos and even bigger stage presence. Sure, left the band for a while, but when he returned, the magic was still there. From Every Rose Has Its Thorn to Talk Dirty to Me, this duo defined glam metal with power and passion. They weren't just bandmates, they were the reason Poison ruled the 80s. Liam and Noel Gallagher. This is the story of two brothers whose relationship was as complicated as their music was brilliant. Liam Gallagher, the voice that represented an entire generation of the 90s. And Noel Gallagher, the brain and guitarist who created masterpieces like Wonderwall, Don't Look Back in Anger, and Champagne Supernova. Yes, they often fought. Whether it was a war of words or backstage brawls, their rivalry became a permanent chapter in rock history. But what never changed was the magical chemistry they had. Even if there was silence on stage or bitterness in their eyes, when they performed, the crowd fell silent. That's the Gallagher brothers. Love amidst hatred, and a revolution within rock. Zack de la Rocha and Tom Morello. Just imagine if Rage Against the Machine had no anger from Zack and no wild guitar sound from Tom Morello. Would it still have the same power, the same energy, the same rebellion? It's safe to say, these two were the heart and mind of the band. Zack de la Rocha, the voice of every person who wants to speak against the system. And Tom Morello, who turned his guitar into a weapon, one that didn't just play, but screamed. Whether it was Killing in the Name or Bulls on Parade, this duo didn't just make music. They became the voice of resistance. Every song a protest, every line a slogan, every solo a battle cry. They weren't just an ordinary rock duo. They were the soldiers of sound and defiance. If there was anyone on stage who captured all eyes in Fleetwood Mac, it was Stevie Nicks and Lindsey Buckingham. They weren't just band members, they were once lovers too. And maybe it was that love that filled their music with magic. But like all great stories, this relationship fell apart over time. What remained, though, was their unmatched chemistry, whether it was silence on stage or hidden bitterness in their eyes. When they sang, the world went quiet. Songs like Go Your Own Way, Dreams, and Landslide reflected their emotions, their story, and their wounds. Stevie and Lindsey proved that sometimes broken hearts create the most beautiful music. Simon and Garfunkel. This is the story of two friends who didn't just make songs, but shaped emotions into words and delivered them straight to the heart. Paul Simon, who spread beauty with words on the strings of a guitar. And Art Garfunkel, the voice that touched the soul. They weren't just a musical team, they were a feeling. Songs like The Sound of Silence, Bridge Over Troubled Water, and Scarborough Fair will echo for generations. There was peace in their music, sorrow too, and a truth that may have remained unspoken if they weren't together. That was Simon and Garfunkel, the voice of silence and the creators of timeless words. Brian Johnson and Angus Young. When Angus Young runs on stage in his school uniform, and Brian Johnson shakes the crowd with his powerful voice, that's when you know the real magic of AC/DC is alive. Brian, the voice that became the roar of rock, and Angus, who brought fire from his guitar while running across the stage. Back in Black, You Shook Me All Night Long. Thunderstruck, they weren't just songs, they were an experience. Noise, energy, and pure rock and roll madness. They weren't just the band's pillars, they had a chemistry on stage that lit up like flames. That's Brian Johnson and Angus Young, who turned rock into something you didn't just hear, but truly felt. Bon Scott and Angus Young. Before Back in Black, there was Highway to Hell. Bon Scott, wild, funny, dangerous. Angus Young, already a guitar monster. Together, they gave us TNT. Let There Be Rock and the iconic Highway to Hell. They weren't just making music, they were starting riots. Bon and Angus were chaos with rhythm, and they made history. Cherie Currie and Joan Jett. When the Runaways stepped into the world of rock, no one thought that such young girls could set the stage on fire. Joan Jett, the roar of the guitar and rebellion deep inside. Cheery Curry, the ice queen of the stage, whose voice could shake hearts. When these two came together, they rocked the rock world. Cherry Bomb wasn't just a song. It was a declaration that girls could rule rock too. Though Joan later became a rock legend, the magic of the Runaways was born the moment Cherry and Joan shined together. These were the real rebel princesses of rock. Fearless, borderless, and completely powerful. Ozzy Osbourne and Tony Iommi. When it comes to laying the foundation of heavy metal, two names come first: Ozzy Osbourne and Tony Iommi. Ozzy, the Prince of Darkness, a voice that could haunt even in dreams. And Tony, the guitarist who turned his severed fingers into a new sound that shook the earth. Black Sabbath began with these two, and songs like Paranoid, Iron Man, and War Pigs weren't just hits. They were the start of a whole new era. Ozzy created magic on stage, and Tony, with his injured fingers, produced sounds that made the ground tremble. This duo didn't just make music, they were the beginning of an age, where darkness, rebellion, and noise gave birth to heavy metal. Ozzy Osbourne and Randy Rhoads. When Ozzy Osbourne left Black Sabbath, many thought his time was over. But then came Randy Rhoads, a young guitar hero whose fingers brought both classical finesse and the fire of rock. Songs like Crazy Train and Mr. Crowley weren't just the magic of Ozzy's voice, they held Randy's hypnotic guitar spell too. Randy's elegant playing and Ozzy's wild energy created a chemistry that struck like lightning. Sadly, their time didn't last long, but the music they left behind is still alive, a legendary duo that changed everything in a short time. This wasn't just music, it was an era, a feeling, a story. These were the timeless duos who didn't just sing, they sent their voices beyond time. Until our next episode, these are timeless legends.